Picture this. Game 4 of the 1996 Stanley Cup Finals, triple overtime. The whole season comes down to this moment, and one goalie stands between victory and defeat. That was Patrick Roy's world, and he didn't just live in it, he owned it. With the Florida Panthers desperate to stay alive, Roy would go on to pitch a shutout in one of the longest championship games ever played. But was he really the greatest to ever guard the net? Or is that just what the history books want us to believe? Today, we're diving into the truth about the man they called St. Patrick. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and smash that like if you want to see more content about hockey's greatest legends. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Ever wonder what creates a legend? For Patrick Roy, it all started in Quebec City, where hockey isn't just a sport, it's religion. Born in Sainte-Foy, young Patrick was breathing hockey before he could even walk. His dad, Michel, covered the sport as a writer, watching countless goalies and probably never imagining his son would outshine them all. His mom, Barbara, she was the real MVP, believing in his dream even when others thought he was crazy. Here's the thing about Roy that'll blow your mind. He didn't choose to be a goalie because he loved stopping pucks. Nah, this guy just thought the equipment looked cool. But that surface level attraction turned into an obsession. While other kids were dreaming of scoring goals, Roy was already planning how to stop them. He turned his backyard into his laboratory, developing what would later become the most copied goaltending style in NHL history. The signs were there early. I'm talking about a teenager so confident, so skilled, that he once shut down an entire team of older players by himself. We're not talking about a few good saves. This kid was making veteran coaches drop their jaws. People weren't just whispering anymore. They were straight up shouting, "This isn't just another good goalie. This is something we've never seen before." But here's where it gets really interesting. Patrick Roy wasn't born with a silver stick in his hand. Everything he achieved, every record he broke, every game he stole, it all came from an almost psychotic dedication to being the best. And trust me, the story of how he got there, that's where things really get wild. But talent alone doesn't make you an NHL superstar, and Roy's path to the big leagues wasn't exactly a smooth ride. Playing for the Granby Bisons in junior hockey, Roy turned heads with his unorthodox style and fierce competitiveness. In the 1984 NHL draft, the Montreal Canadiens selected him 51st overall. Pretty late for a guy who'd change hockey forever, right? Roy's NHL debut? Well, that came on February 23rd, 1985, when he got called up for a game against the Winnipeg Jets. But his real breakthrough happened during the 1985-86 season. At just 20 years old, Roy didn't just win the starting job, he absolutely owned it. That season, he posted 23 wins and a solid .875 save percentage, which might not sound amazing today. But remember, this was the high-scoring 80s, folks. Here's where things get wild. In the 1986 playoffs, Roy didn't just play well, he became St. Patrick. He led the Canadiens to a Stanley Cup victory, becoming the youngest Conn Smythe Trophy winner in NHL history at 20 years and 181 days. Let that sink in. A rookie goalie carrying an underdog Canadiens team to hockey's ultimate prize. During those playoffs, Roy put up an incredible 1.92 goals against average, winning 15 games and shocking the hockey world. The next few seasons proved this wasn't just beginner's luck. Roy consistently put up stellar numbers, regularly facing over 30 shots a night and keeping the Canadiens competitive. In 1988-89, he won his first William M. Jennings Trophy for allowing the fewest goals in the league and made the NHL first All-Star team, the first of many times he'd received these honors. By the end of the 1980s, Roy wasn't just Montreal's starting goalie. He was becoming the new standard for what a modern NHL goaltender could be. His butterfly style, which we take for granted today, was revolutionary back then. While other goalies were still standing up, Roy was showing that getting down on the ice could actually be more effective. Now let's talk about when Roy went from great to legendary. The 1990s weren't just Roy's prime years, they were when he completely rewrote the goaltending playbook. The 1992-93 season? Pure magic. Roy led the Canadiens to another Stanley Cup, but it's how he did it that's mind-blowing. During that playoff run, he won an incredible 10 games in overtime. Think about the pressure of overtime playoff hockey. Then imagine doing that 10 times in one run. Insane! And check this out. During that same cup run, Roy pulled off what might be the greatest wink in hockey history. In the finals against the LA Kings, after making a huge save, he winked at Thomas Sandstrom. That wasn't just confidence, that was pure intimidation. The Canadiens won that series in 5 games, and Roy grabbed his second Conn Smythe Trophy. But everything changed on December 2nd, 1995. After getting lit up for 9 goals against Detroit, Roy was left in net to face the embarrassment. When he finally got pulled, he walked straight to team president Ronald Corey and said he'd never play for Montreal again. 4 days later, he was traded to the Colorado Avalanche. Some people thought Roy's best days were behind him. Boy, were they wrong. In his first season with Colorado, Waugh proved all the doubters wrong. He helped lead the Avalanche to their first Stanley Cup, posting a ridiculous .921 save percentage in the playoffs. Even more impressive, he shut out the Florida Panthers in triple overtime of Game 4 to clinch the cup. That's the kind of clutch performances that made Roy special. The bigger the moment, the better he played. The 2000 to 2001 season might have been Waugh's masterpiece. At 35 years old, when most goalies start slowing down, he put up some of his best numbers ever. We're talking 40 wins, a .913 save percentage, and getting his hands on both the Jennings Trophy and his 4th Stanley Cup. Oh, and he became the first goalie ever to win the Conn Smythe Trophy in 3 different decades. Let's put his peak years in perspective with some numbers that'll blow your mind. Between 1986 and 2003, Waugh won 551 games in the regular season and 151 in the playoffs. He made the All-Star team 11 times, won 3 Vezina trophies as the league's best goalie, and 5 Jennings trophies for the fewest goals against. But here's the crazy part. He went to the playoffs 17 straight seasons. That's not just consistency, that's dominance. What made Waugh different during these years wasn't just the saves, it was how he changed the position forever. His butterfly style became the template for modern goaltending. Every kid in net today is basically playing Waugh's game. He showed that being technically sound was just as important as being athletic, and his mental toughness set a new standard for what it means to be clutch. Now, even legends have to slow down eventually, but Waugh's decline was different for most. His final few seasons with Colorado were still pretty impressive, especially when you consider he was pushing 37. During the 2002 to 2003 season, his last dance in the NHL, he still managed to put up 35 wins and a solid .914 save percentage. Most goalies would kill for those numbers in their prime, let alone their farewell tour. But here's the thing about Waugh. He wasn't interested in hanging around just to pad his stats. In 2003, after a tough playoff loss to the Minnesota Wild in Game 7, he took some time to think about his future. Instead of dragging it out or waiting until he couldn't compete anymore, he announced his retirement on May 28, 2003. That's classic Roy, leaving on his own terms. Looking at his final few seasons, you could see small signs that Father Time was catching up. His reaction time wasn't quite as lightning quick, and those spectacular splits weren't coming as easily. But what's incredible is how Waugh adapted. When he couldn't rely purely on athleticism anymore, he leaned more on his positioning and experience. The old dog had plenty of tricks left. Let's put his decline in perspective. In his final 3 seasons, he still won 105 games and maintained a save percentage above .910. Most goalies would call that a career peak, but for Waugh, anything less than excellence wasn't good enough. He set such a high standard throughout his career that even his great final seasons seemed like a step down from his supernatural prime. The Colorado Avalanche retired his famous 33 jersey right after his retirement, and the Montreal Canadiens followed suit in 2008. When you have 2 different teams retire your number, you know you've done something special. And honestly, both cities can rightfully claim him as their own. He was that important to both franchises. So how do we measure Patrick Waugh's impact on hockey? Well, the numbers tell part of the story. 551 wins, which was the all-time record when he retired, 4 Stanley Cups, 3 Conn Smythe trophies, and 3 Vezina trophies. But Waugh's legacy goes way beyond the stats. Think about this. Every time you see a goalie drop into the butterfly position today, that's Waugh's influence right there. Before him, goalies were mostly stand-up style players. Waugh didn't just use the butterfly technique, he perfected it and proved it was the future of goaltending. Watch any NHL game today, and you'll see his fingerprints all over how modern goalies play. Guys like Marc-Andre Fleury and Carey Price, they grew up studying Waugh's technique. When we compare him to other goalie legends, what sets Waugh apart isn't just his achievements, it's his attitude.
Martin Brodeur might have broken his records and Dominik Hasek might have had better save percentages, but nobody, and I mean nobody, had Waugh's combination of skill, innovation, and clutch performance.
This guy lived for big moments. The more pressure there was, the better he played. But maybe his biggest legacy is how he changed what people expect from goalies. Before Waugh, goalies were seen as these quiet, kind of quirky guys who just stopped pucks. Waugh showed that a goalie could be a team's backbone, its confidence, its swagger. He wasn't afraid to speak his mind or show emotion on the ice. He treated goaltending like an art form, and in doing so, he made it cool to be a goalie. Today, Roy's influence continues through his coaching and mentoring. The lessons he taught about positioning, reading plays, and mental toughness are still being passed down to new generations of goalies. When people talk about the greatest of all time, Roy's name isn't just in the conversation. It's usually at the top of the list. And the crazy thing is, even with all the advances in goalie training and equipment, No one has quite matched his level of dominance in the biggest moments. But that's all I've got for you today, and family. After breaking down Patrick Roy's incredible career, I've got a question for you. Who do you think was the more dominant goalie in their prime? Roy or Dominik Hasek? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to include your favorite Roy moment. If you enjoyed diving into hockey history with me today, make sure to smash that like button and hit subscribe. We've got more legendary player breakdowns coming your way. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.